Welcome, welcome, children of heaven, creatures of hell, things from other worlds. It's time for some Court of Swords preparation stream. It's good to see you, but sad we're not playing, but that's okay, because this gives me an opportunity to hang out with you and give you a little bit of the backstage content, a little bit of that extra secret stuff. So let's talk about what we're going to do today. This is a GM prep stream for...
You have returned.
Welcome back, Cypher. This is a GM prep stream for Court of Swords, the roleplay ongoing 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons game, as modified by myself, game mastered by this guy, starring Dan S. Gaming, Gassy Mexican, Ezekiel number 3, and it me, JP. We are going to spoil the show. I promise you that I am going to say something that if you haven't already caught up on the show, will violate your sense of having to see it live. If you're not caught up, you're going to have to make a decision. Is that okay? Now, don't worry. This video will be available after the fact, both to Twitch subscribers first and to YouTube subscribers and viewers later. So you can go catch up and you can watch. Now, I know. That's not normally what one does when one is broadcasting. One does not normally tell one's audience it's okay to leave, but it's okay to leave if you want to protect yourself from spoilers. So if you're here for the good shit, if you're here for that sweet, sweet GM backstage info lore horse shit, sit your ass down, because it's time to get spoiled. So normally what we do is we just kind of like go in on these streams at the beginning with the lore stuff to begin with. So we'll talk about kind of what's been happening so far. We'll talk about the arc. I'll be nice and transparent about all kind of the bullshit that we've been up to. You can ask questions. This isn't a formal Q&A, but I'll keep an eye on on chat if you have questions about stuff. I do want to say, so first of all, thank you, Drop the Base GS and Drifted Island 84. Welcome to the squad. Thank you for your subs. I will say this before we get started. I am not going to tell you everything about the Farang. The Farang are my secret heart. I'm not going to give them to you yet. I will feed them to you in tiny bits and pieces as the campaign goes on. But I will say, if you are excited about the idea of whatever the fuck is going on with these space elves, you can go to the JP's community site, go to community.itmejp.com and read the thread about the Farang. It's so fucking good. I can't even tell you. Like, the theories and how close attention people have been paying, it's really fantastic. I am so proud as a creator when moments like that come up where I can just look at the thread and be like, you get me. You really were listening. Thank you. Games from the Wildwood, welcome back. So okay, let's talk about the arc. Let's talk about what's been going on. So since Kalimat Al-Fida and Salihafa joined the crew in search of Berg and Ramus and the quest upon which those two were to observe and to understand their situation, things have been exceptionally weird. Now, I've got a name for this arc. It's been in my notebook. I haven't explicitly said it out loud or anything, but this arc in my notebook, when I started it, was called Stranger Stars. And this arc, the Stranger Stars arc, has been about both strangeness, right? Starting with strangers, literal strangers, right? Kalimat and Salihafa, right? Literal strangers. It's been about planar strangers, right? The strangeness of Inanna and Utrix. As you saw in the last episode, some very unusual strangers. We'll get to them and their brain beast when we return. And it's been about stars, both in the sense of the star, right? A lot of people twigged real early to Kalimat being potentially the star, both in a literal like celebrity sense, right? We played up that he was kind of a famous like poet and musician, And then also the star in the sense of the arc of the arcana. So if you remember, the arcana have been created by humankind to understand the power of the fountain being Court of Swords, molten bubble of pure divine energy from whence all reality flows, right? Everything in the universe is tied together by the power of the fountain. The fountain is a source of power which you can pray to, or you can cajole or convince, or otherwise find a way to empower yourself by way of it. This is how wizards, sorcerers, clerics, druids by way of some other shit, but this is how all of these characters work. This is how they become empowered. This is the source of magic. So the fountain sits at the center of heaven, and at one point, humans, kind of at the beginning of the ascendancy of the human race, humans, with some help from the dwarves, put together a series of protocols, prayers, that sorted the fountain's power into facets, because the fountain in of itself is much too powerful to tap into. It's like trying to take a drop of water from a fire hose. It's impossible. But what we can do is we can, at the source, filter that power into subsections. So this is what formed the arcana. The arcana are formed around the idea of reincarnation, and the journey of the human soul. A human undergoes the stages of the arcana as they move through their life. And as we all know, the nadir of a person's forward progress is represented by the tower. The tower represents destruction. The tower represents the forest fire that burns away the old growth so that new may grow. It's the suffering that we undergo so we can understand how to become better. People have twigged, not inaccurately, to the fact that this arc, particularly the last few episodes, everything to do with the tower has been particularly brutal for the PCs. I have had my GM cruelty knob cranked all the way up to the top, and I've been a little mean. There was a great post in the community on the last episode that tabulated, just in the thread is like some 60 responses long, and tabulated like, hey, Adam, I don't know if you're noticing this pattern, but here's like 7 people in this thread that have been like, I wish nicer things would happen to the players. I wish good stuff would occur. I wish that Adam would stop pummeling them so bad. And everybody feels bad for what happened because of Ramus at the end of the last session. And I'm okay. I can suffer those slings and arrows. I can take it. So don't worry about hurting my feelings, fam. I'm good. But the point is, I don't fuck around when I say the players are currently in the deep basin of shadow under the tower. You sign up for darkness, and darkness you will fucking get, right? So we're in this position where the characters have been tasked by a grossly overpowered member of the Sahir. Now, the Sahir represent characters who have empowered themselves to step outside the cycle of reincarnation. And we know that when we talk about blasphemy, Ferris, thank you. When we talk about blasphemy in Court of Swords, we don't mean like taking the Lord's name in vain. We mean ignoring, supplanting, undermining the great cycle of heaven, right? Birth, death, rebirth, death, rebirth, each time hopefully polishing one's soul until we reach enlightenment. Enlightenment, nirvana. I suspect that in many languages in the Court of Swords and surrounding world, I suspect in many languages, oblivion and enlightenment mean the same. They're the same word in their language, right? Like there's very much that thing. So
You have returned.
the worst thing one can do, aside from resubscribing to me for 2 months, thank you, Jason. The worst thing that someone can do is find a way to cheat that system. There is a finite number of souls, right? We talked about this before. The like 555 billion souls in creation, and they move through this cycle together, and people die and are reborn, animals die and are reborn, and you accumulate dharma, hopefully not too much, and if you are able to reach a form of enlightenment, you move up the chain until eventually the most powerful angels, the Azamar, the like Tiangxi, the highest level of entities, become one with the fountain and disappear, essentially. That soul is checked off the list, and the universe's magic gets just a little bit stronger, right? A little bit more powerful. Diatribal.
You have returned.
Also, Muffin Manifesto. Hello, hello. Accumulating your dharma. So that's what happens. The Sahir are a group of immortal, semi-immortal, functionally outside the great chain of being individuals. There are a number of them. The known Sahir. The known Sahir are numbering 12 or 13, which is an inauspicious number, right? In Court of Swords, everything is 5. Fives. The Sahir come from human roots, right? There are no Sahir that come from anywhere else. None of the Sahir are elemental or Garma gods or dharmic avoiders. They are people who were either human or dwarves or whatever. I think probably they're mostly human, who stepped outside of the sort of interactions of reality. Yeah, it's magically it's 5, elementally it's 4. There's 2 ways to look at it, right? Like whether you acknowledge void as an element. Anyway, so the thing is, the Sahir have decided not to be a part of the reincarnation process anymore. They want to live forever, because some goals, some plans, you have to be able to retain your memory from life to life. And Utrix, yes, Utrix is absolutely he was a human. He was a human being. He's probably thousands of years old. Same with Inanna. Inanna is a human, but they build up these like mythologies around them, right? Yeah, and so Judd, as you pointed out, Utrix, to perform the magic he needed to perform, he had to obfuscate himself from the eye of heaven, and so he and his loyal servants stepped outside the world. And when I mean the world, I don't literally mean like so. Court of Swords is a very literal physical place. When I talk about heaven, it's a place you could go and walk around. When I talk about like we described it as being sort of like a flat dome, and heaven is in the clouds above the earth, and the earth is below. But to perform his blasphemies, Utrix had to sever cut a slit in the great tent from which the sky hangs, and step outside. And once he got out there, that's where he interacted with the people. That's where he was able to capture some of the servants of the Mara. It's where he undertook his blasphemous ritual with the hope that he could become a deity. Now, what's interesting is that Utrix is not a necromancer. Utrix is not a usurper. Utrix still just had the one soul. He wasn't trying to cheat, right? He wasn't trying to scoop up souls because he knew that they would go missing, right? That someone in heaven would notice that one of the 555 billion is like, wait a second, it's gone. So what he did instead was attempt a transmutation, right? Utrix's experiment was to rebirth himself sideways instead of up or down. Does that make sense? Like laterally move. Because as we've talked about, there are creatures that exist in the universe that predate and presuppose this circle of reincarnation, right? Because there had to exist creatures prior to humanity to give birth to or create humanity. So, for example, creatures like Zeridas, creatures like Agni, creatures like all of the other gods and entities that we have seen throughout the campaign that fit that role. So when we talk about that kind of creature, right, we as sort of viewers through humanity's perspective, we see the gods as one kind of semi-homogeneous group of entities, right? So there's like the god of a river. There's the god of the sky. There's the god of reincarnation, the god of intoxicants. There's the god of riches. There are all of these like non-arcana entities that work in the bureaucracy of heaven or function on earth. On earth, gods like Imix, gods like Agni, gods like the spirits that we saw in the primordial arc, those creatures are all earthly spirits. Most of them are sleeping, right? Like, if you were to, I don't know, let's say, go out into the desert, you would be walking through the domain of the god of deserts, right? The god of this desert, particularly. If you come upon an oasis, there is a god who protects that oasis and whose oasis is its body, right? We talked about animism and how that works. So the thing about those spirits, though, is they're the losers of I don't want to say a fight. There was no war, no battle. They're the losers of a battle from a long time ago, an ideological battle over whether or not human destiny mattered. Right? So like that was the thing. Human destiny was the thing. All the gods, all the spirits got together and were like, listen, we have seen the way forward. And the way forward spins around the hub of a great wheel. And that hub is humanity. And so all of the gods that agreed with that created heaven. Right? They were like, excellent. Let's make a heaven. Let's make a place where we can serve humanity, polish their souls, and empower the fountain. Right? These are the gods who are like, yes, humans, we will help you create the arcana, and then we will go up into the universe and we will be in heaven. The gods that stuck around were gods that cared more about the things that were made. They didn't care about destiny or fate. They don't care about reincarnation. They care about the powers of the earth, right? These are like Imix, Prince of Fire, right? These are the elemental powers. These are powers of like physical, real things in the universe. And they measure fractally from the god of the desert all the way down to the god of a single grain of sand. So the thing about those gods, though, is that they lost and that they were wrong in so much as the fountain has chosen a side, in so much as a source of power can choose a side. And so the fountain instead is empowering heaven and empowering humanity and empowering clerics, and all of the gods of the earth are slowly slumbering away. They are falling into darkness. That god of the desert, you can't pray to him. He won't give you spells. You can't give him offerings. He won't hear you. You can't wake him to guide you because he's asleep. You can walk through his sleeping body, but you can't affect him. You cannot wake him up. And there's a reason for that, right? Because if we were to wake him up, then humans would go back to being the slaves of all the entities that existed on the earth, right? Because humans exist only to like worship and to serve and to grovel. So powers like Imix that are still alive, slumbering creatures like the dream serpent that Nakane Ino was following and woke up. These creatures, they don't tend to empower their entity, their servants. They're just there to kind of slumber away and see what happens. And if they all woke up at once, it would be an apocalypse. It would be just like the worst possible thing because, you know, this whole thing, there'd be a war. Heaven would be like, go back to sleep. The sleeping gods would wake up, but they have children. They have lesser entities that can grant power, right? So Agni, for example, Agni is the daughter of Imix. Her brother, whose name I can never, Novum. Agni and Novum are both fire gods, right? They are children of, and when I say children, they're aspects of Imix, right? So the two of them are forge aspects, creators of Imix, and they represent the human capacity for making things with fire. That's why they're shaped like humans. Imix himself doesn't really like hand out. He could probably empower some druids. There are flame druids that serve him, and that sort of thing. So yeah, so Agni is very human-like, and that's how she can exist. However, because of the compact that the gods of the earth and the gods of heaven kind of like have, Agni can never go to heaven, right? The gods of heaven cannot walk the earth, save through their agents, the angels, and the gods of earth cannot function in heaven, save through their actions of their children, the Genasi, right? So it's interesting kind of seeing these magical demigod creatures like Agni in the world, and how they compare and contrast with the Sahir, right? Because the Sahir are humans who have kind of moved up the chain, and these elemental powered creatures are kind of in the earth and still awake. But yeah, like Agni was saying, she can make clerics, totally. Some of the lesser ones could make warlocks. Warlocks, I think the trick, though, with them is that it's... Okay, let me get theological. So, you pray to Agni. Dearest Agni, you're so cool. Please give me cure light wounds. And Agni's like, yeah, dog. And she takes some power from the fountain, bangs together a cure light wounds spell, and gives it to you, and says, simply whisper my name, and I shall grant you the curing power of flame. Now, a warlock doesn't do that, right? A warlock says, O most triumphant Mara, empower me to do my will on the world. And the Mara are like, yo, dog, here you go. And they slice off a piece of their own power and hand it over to you. I think that warlock magic, it's of the fountain, because everything is of the fountain except the Farang, but we'll talk about them. So warlock magic is of the fountain, but it's really new, and it represents the sort of flensing, or like the direct giving of power instead of the crafting of what already exists. And so in a way it's not blasphemous, but it's like a side jam. And so, yeah, Ty Martinez is asking...
You have returned.
Hey, Moanis, that's a lot of text. I'll get to you. So, Ty was saying, what about the new Celestial Warlocks? There is a faction of powerful angelic creatures that are hovering on the edge of enlightenment, but who are maybe realizing, I don't know if I want to be obliviated, even if it means becoming one with the universe. They have that sliver of self still there. Those kinds of creatures absolutely could be patrons for, the Celestial Warlock, for sure. But I don't think they know how yet, because those are Mara tricks, right? Yeah, SMP Gaming, if the Mara constantly give away their power, wouldn't they eventually run out? Yes, wouldn't they? Why don't they? What is it about... It's Newtonian, right? The wheel is turning, but for every action, equal and opposite reaction. So perhaps the turning of the wheel of fortune, right? The movement of reincarnation is somehow creating a shadow movement of like inverse power. We've talked before about how the Mara didn't exist before the Arcana did. And the Arcana saw the Mara as like bad and terrible and to be destroyed, ignored, sent out, right? So it's torquing the rod. It's creating some kind of like counter friction in the void. Because it's the fucking the yin yang, right? You cannot have the power of the fountain without some darker opposite to hold it. So who knows, right? Who knows? So the thing about the Farang, let's get to them. The things that we know about the Farang is they're they're like locusts. They, for whatever reason, have sought out a way to access this world, the world of the Court of Swords. They've sought out a way to access the world of the Court of Swords because they can feel the fountain. They can feel the power of the fountain. They hunger for it. The fountain is the most powerful source of energy in the universe. And I mean, like, our campaign setting. And so they've detected it and have slowly been sending incursions into this space. However, they've been slowed by their own internal civil strife. As the community was noting, the Farang are factional, right? We've seen at least 2, maybe 3 or 4. It depends on how you want to theorize it. We've seen multiple iterations of the Farang, and we know that there are different kinds. Whether that is a political distinction or what, we haven't seen yet. The Farang that we've seen so far are the self-destructive one, right? The golden armored pyramid destructive one, right? We've seen the Dark Passenger. Have we seen any more? Right? So, you know, the big questions remaining from Utrix's Seclusium is, who was the prisoner? Right? Who was the prisoner and who was the guest? Right? Because we have 2 unknown characters. We know that we saw the woman in black, right? The black veiled guest. We know there is the prisoner underneath the stuck in the oubliette, which Kalimat freed, and we know. I guess we know the rest, right? The cook was a former god. Agni is a demigod or a god, like a god's child, and
Our illustrious champion returns.
hello,
Welcome home.
hi there. And we know that
I got knocked on my ass by that dick.
hey Twilight, that the Kyrian was a powerful celestial entity, but not a god, right? A monster of some kind, but a good one, a nice monster. So something happened to Berg's passenger, right? Berg has a sliver of something in him, a Farang or something like that, right? It's semi-intelligent. Up till now, it had been absorbing souls, but when Berg drank the false fountain water, something happened. And his soul sliver has changed somehow. Something has gone on with that, and it's transmuted or awakened or whatever. That is something on my to-do list that we'll talk about more as we go. That's part of a front that I have for Berg. And something happened with the hammer, right? Because we know that the hammer has been changed as well by this magical.
You have returned.
Hello, Bunny. Welcome back. Because now Berg does psychic damage instead of necrotic, and he's not absorbing souls anymore. Something has happened. Yeah, he's got his sledgehammer. Exactly. So going into Valhero asked an important question. So is being a god qualitative? No. So this was what made Utrix's experiment so interesting, because you're born a human. I don't know how to, I can't really diagram this. Maybe you're born a human. It doesn't matter. Born is irrelevant. There are 555 billion souls. You are a human, and you live your life, and maybe you live a good life. Good, meaning you follow the tenets of fate. So here's good and evil in Court of Swords, according to the prevailing universe and its morality. Here's good and evil. Good is doing what you are fated to do, right? Following your destiny. A fortune teller says, today you will go out into the market and you will buy 2 steamed pork buns. One you will eat, the other you will give to a beggar. A good person goes into the market, buys a couple of pork buns, finds a beggar, gives one to him, right? An evil person says, no, fuck you. I'm going to eat both those pork buns. Not because it's a selfish act makes it evil, but because you are flipping the bird to your destiny. You are fated to do this. And if you act against your fate, you are committing an act of evil, right? You are becoming unclean. You are accumulating dharma.
You have returned.
Welcome back. Thank you. So you are accumulating dharma, and that is not good, because if you accumulate enough dharma, you get reborn further back, right? You're less enlightened. Yeah, same thing. You give away both pork buns. That's also evil. It's rejecting your fate. Now, fate isn't often that clear. If your fate is ever that clear, if anyone ever magically tells you, like, do this thing, and they give you real specific instructions, you better do it. So, going along with the flow of the fountain, right? Going with the flow is a much more reverent term in Court of Swords because it means to travel with your destiny.
You have returned.
Pork buns. So, that's a good thing. That's what we want. That's what we want you to do because it powers the fountain, right? Because the fountain wants...
Our illustrious champion returns.
The fountain wants everyone
Welcome
to
home.
become one with it. It wants the fountain to... It wants to eventually consume the universe and become all enlightened, humming with the great Om of existence, the oneness with the universe, nirvana, oblivion, right? That's what the fountain, if it wants anything, that's what it wants. All our souls are to be one. And ignoring your destiny means moving away from that. That's good and evil in Court of Swords. So that's for humans. Humans are the most important thing. This is a humanocentric universe for sure. However, to serve man, we have the gods. The gods have chosen to shackle themselves. If you haven't noticed, I'm gonna throw this out there. I'm gonna English teacher you. If you haven't noticed, one of the key motifs, one of the core themes of Court of Swords is servitude, right? To whom are we bound? What do we serve? Right? Do we serve ourselves? Do we serve the universe? What service do we perform, and to whom are we bound? So that's like the core motif of Court of Swords. And the gods chose to bind themselves to man. And when I say man, I mean like humans, dwarves, elves.
Welcome to the math squad.
Genasi, tieflings, like all of the creatures that live in the universe. Hi, Joker. Thank you. So all the creatures that become that are part of the fountain's purview, that are powered by it, and what have you. So humanoids. That's right. The gods chose to serve man, and in doing so, set themselves apart. They are the custodians of humanity and of those souls. Technically, gods and elementals have no souls, right? Agni hinted at this in the last episode. Agni said, we're different. You are like me, but you wear a cloak of flesh, right? She is part of the universe's magic, as are all the gods in the bureaucracy of heaven and on earth. Humans bear within them a soul that is essentially an elemental or like a god. But yeah, she said, we are our souls. Yeah, exactly. So there's nothing to polish. When an elemental dies, it just dissipates into the universe, and maybe it reforms, maybe it becomes something else. It's a zero-sum game. So what Utrix was trying to do was become functionally one with the universe in the sense of like, I don't want to wait for enlightenment. I want to be a god. I want to be the god of myself, right? He was a church of his own divinity. He was the high priest, grand pope of his own bullshit. And that was the thing was, is that it wasn't his hubris that made him a crazy wizard. The hubris was, or the problem was that he wanted to step aside from his proper destiny. It's like the Mara, except that he didn't want to break the wheel. He just wanted to get off the ride, right? He was like, nope, I'm done. I'm going to just jump. I'm jumping out midway. I'm going to open the door. I'm going to bail out. And the ride of reincarnation will rip forward ahead. So it would have been interesting to see what would happen, but he's failed. He failed, right? His soul was destroyed. You can't destroy a soul, but Berg broke the phylactery, for lack of a better word. Phylactery of a better word. They broke his soul and returned him. And now, you fucking know, Utrix is going to get reincarnated as like a slug or some shit because he accumulated thousands of years of Dharma, thousands and thousands of years of avoiding his fate. Sucks for him. Sucks real bad. And in a way, the Sahir are really like Dharma dumps, right? They accumulate dharmic debt. They build up this cruft of bad fate energy. And I guarantee somewhere there is a Sahir who is trying to power themselves with Dharma. Like karmic debt as power source. So yeah. Right? Yeah. So that's kind of the jam with the Sahir. Inanna is like that too. Massively burdened with Dharma, but she doesn't die, right? She gets to keep her memory and live, and that's why they have time to build power. So, thinking about that torque, that Maric, like, anti-movement of the wheel, that idea of rejection of the wheel's turn, and that being Dharma, and like how the Mara fit into that, that's all kind of stuff that I've been thinking about in this last arc quite a lot. So what about our players, right? Like, God love them. At least Kalimat and Salihatha are like normal, right? Like at least they're normal characters in that they have a physical form and they have souls, and if they die, their souls will get reincarnated. They're still part of the cycle. Yeah, Lazy Purple Lion, welcome back. Yeah, there are other immortals. There are vampires that's just the word we use for them, but they're not like, I'm going to suck your blood, blah. They're vampires, but there's them. There's the immortals of the City of Brass, cursed by the gods to live forever, right? So that they might rule this greatest of cities. Hassan, servant of the tower, who doesn't seem to be allowed to reincarnate. Yeah, all either accumulating or paying off dharmic debt, perhaps. And that's a thing, right? There's definitely those. So yeah, the shape changer, that's right. Yep, the vampire's enemy, Ramus, right? So the thing with Ramus is Hazan and the clergy of the tower, right? The high council of the tower, they made a deal. They bribed the god of reincarnation, and I love that Ramus has an idea about this. Like, that's so funny. Like,
welcome to the
he knows that he has no soul, and he's just like, well, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. Colonel Kassad, welcome to the squad. Thank you. Hey, that rhymed. And so they were like, yo, god of reincarnation, here's something. Here's a bribe. Look the other way. We're gonna we just knocked this. It's fine. Nothing happened. Go about your business. And Ramus is not he's not a part of the cycle of reincarnation anymore. Here's what happens if Ramus dies, right? If Ramus dies, his Po, right? The lower soul, the thing that is Ramus, evaporates like all do, right? It goes away. And his Hun gets reincarnated probably as like a pig or a donkey or something because he wasn't a very nice person. It's just that his acts, so this is the thing that I wonder, if Ramus ever learns this, it's either going to drive him insane or make him a supervillain. So the rules of reincarnation and stuff apply to everybody, right? So it doesn't matter if you want them to or not, they just do.
To the
and whatever you do bears on you as Dharma, and when you die, your Dharma gets weighed and your soul gets cleaned or whatever, and you get sent back to reincarnate. But no one is keeping track of Ramus's behavior anymore. Like, nobody. He's invisible in the sense, not in the way the Farang are invisible, but they've stopped saving the state, right? When he died, his soul got cleaned up and put on a shelf somewhere and lost. And now Ramus can get away with anything. He's no longer Fate's fool because his Dharma's been tabled. So he can do whatever he wants. And when he reincarnates, he'll be reincarnated based on the deeds that were done already. And now no evil act can weigh heavy on his soul. And so for a cleric, that's a whole other thing, right? So if he ever realizes that, woof. No, Chrome Viper, I think Hazan, what's interesting about Hazan is that he's taking direct orders from the fountain by way of the tower, right? He is a sworn servant of fate. Hazan has no control or self will. Like, he's lost all of his personhood. In a way, he's a purer soul rather than a no soul because he has no other intention except to serve destruction. So he's also being denied reincarnation, but what will likely happen to Hazan is that someday the tower will be like, instantaneous enlightenment. You get to skip all of this other bullshit. You have served us well, and for this greatest sacrifice, boop, you just become one with the universe. He'll get the oblivion that he so obviously needs. He's exactly the opposite of Ramus. He serves the tower, he serves fate unquestioningly because he is a walking Hun instead of a Po, right? So yeah. Hazan bribed them to hide Ramus's soul because Ramus had already been processed, right? Hazan had to do that because it was too late. Ramus was slated for reincarnation, and they were like, "No, I need the Po for this one. Like, don't wash it away." Hun and Po, my awful anglicized version of pronouncing those things. The Hun and the Po are the two halves of a person's soul. They're the upper soul and the lower soul. The upper soul that gets polished and reincarnated and eventually becomes strong enough to become one with the universe. The Po is the thing that gets glommed around it, that makes up identity and personality and behavior, who you are today. Yeah, right? That goes away. Like, for example, the girl that we saw in the scrying pool, when Berg went looking for his erstwhile girlfriend, that girl was the Hun of Azure Vortex reincarnated with the Po of a young girl, right? The Po comes and goes because it's not a real soul. Yeah. So that's kind of where all that shit is. Let's go back to the Farang. We got on a huge tangent. So the Farang are outsiders. The Farang either have no soul or their soul functions somewhere else. What I'm thinking for the Farang is that there is upper soul and there is lower soul and there is body, but the Farang are mind. The Farang are the, like, personality and soul united in form. I don't know anything about their reincarnation or their rebirth. I don't know how they die. I haven't thought about that. Or I have notes, but I don't want to share that stuff. One of those two things. But they are mind. They are creatures that exist as thought. They are capable of all kinds of stuff that would blow heaven's mind. And most importantly, they are outside the fountain's influence, which I haven't decided if that means they're completely immune to magic. But they certainly did a good job fucking up Utrix, didn't they? Yeah. So I won't say too much more about the Farang, except that they thirst for the waters of the fountain. They're seeking a new home to colonize. They're like tulpa, totally. I'm going to write that down. It's not a word I had used to think of them, but I'm writing it down. Right? And so this is the like philosophy shit again. Remember, the Farang are, if I'm going to come at them culturally, I'm going to come at them from a more kind of Western philosophy point of view. So instead of looking to Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism for my inspiration for the Farang, I'm going to be looking at Descartes, right? Dehors. No, I'm looking at Descartes, Kant. They are Westernized in this sense. And so that's what I mean when I think about that, is that's the kind of like division I'm thinking of. They probably are monotheistic if they have a god entity, right? They believe in a single universal overgod, which gives us some of that Cartesian shit to work with. And they are yes, and thank you. Muffin Manifesto understands the Farang are French colonizers in the Southeast Asia of our setting. It's a metaphor. Get it? So I'm thinking about that, in that like they exist outside of that power source. They exist in a place where magic can't touch them. There's probably been a schism, some kind of philosophical schism that separated them into at least two factions. I will point out, and people obviously have noticed this, and in the Farang's like thread, you will notice the creatures in the living squid ship, the creatures in the squid ship, who had the like leathery heads with the tendrils, their eyes, when we got a quick close up of them, they were goggles, and that these things were masks over their faces. So yeah. So we've also seen the people, right? Who, if you're astute, you pick this up. They are the Gith, right? They're the Gith Zerai, or the people. The woman that serves Inanna and ostensibly some of the other Githyanki are present in the setting. They exist in a world that is outside of our world, but they're around. And we've seen some of them in the game and in the world. So, what interaction do they have with the Farang? Are they the people who have? Are the remnants of the people what's left after the Farang conquer and strip a world and enslave their people? Like, are we looking into the future? Mayhaps. We don't know. But it's certainly a possibility, something to think about, something to look at. So yeah, cool, huh? Neat stuff. That's kind of where we're at in terms of the like overall kind of like lore stuff of this arc of Court of Swords. And now I want to talk about going forward. So what I need to do, let me look at my calendar here. What I need to do, what I'm prepping for.
A kind gesture.
Thanks, Second Monkey. Are any of the demi-humans besides angels and elementals considered higher karma reincarnation targets than humans? No, I figure dwarves, humans, whatever they think of, but orcs, like they're all kind of the same. But if heaven knows that you're fated to learn a lesson in suffering, you're likely to be reborn as an orc, right? We know that the elemental, the Genasi and the Tiangxi are closer to God. Essentially, they're closer to reincarnation. They're better than humans. But what I think is interesting is that once you become Tiangxi, you get access to heaven. You're allowed into heaven, which is interesting. All right, so let me look at my calendar here. So we've got an episode on Saturday, and we've got an episode on Tuesday, and then Saturday again is the live show. So I've got 8 hours of content. Tianxi, it's what the in-setting term for Asimar, like earthbound angels. What's preventing the courts? They can't get in. What's preventing the Farang from dominating the courts in heaven is that they can't get in. They have no access. There's a bubble, right? There's the bubble of heaven. There's the aura of the fountain that's like somehow blocking them from gaining access, and they can come in bits and pieces. We've seen some of their initial probes, but yeah. Okay, so yeah, so I've got the episode that I'm aiming for is in 11 days from now, the live episode. No, it's no problem, Wenis. I'm happy to answer questions. So I've got to do basically two episodes. And what I'm hoping, and I say hoping, but I have total control over it. What I want to do is, okay, so here's the arc, right? We started, let me just make a little gesture with my hand. We started with the characters here. And we were like, things are getting weird. Oh, hi, Anana. Boy, you're super weird. What do you want us to do? Go find a wizard? Uh-oh. Oh, it's getting weirder. It's getting weirder. Oh, it's so fucking weird. Bloop, we're out in the desert. I want to bring it down a little bit, and I want to give them a chance to, like, ironically, cool off in the desert. And then when the desert's over, we get to the live show, and we'll be like, what's up? It's fucking weird again, right? Stranger Stars, it's going to hit. It's going to hit real hard at the beginning of the live show. I want to end 2 episodes from now. I want to end with, like, I have a big revelation. So what's great as the GM is that I get to set the pace. So the next two episodes are just going to be cool shit in the desert.